The sun was setting over the Arizona desert, casting long shadows across the dry land. The air was still, and the only sound was the wind brushing through the canyons. Wyatt Cole sat on the porch of his small wooden cabin, a rifle resting beside him, and his old dog sleeping at his feet. Life had been quiet for years now. He liked it that way. After the war ended, he never wanted noise again. Wyatt had moved far from towns, far from people. He lived near the cliffs where eagles flew and wild horses roamed. He spent his days fixing fences, tending cattle, and watching the sky turn red at night. He didn't speak much. He didn't smile much. But deep inside, he had a kind heart, just one that had seen too much pain. One evening, as he was checking the far edge of his land, he heard something unusual. A scream, sharp, distant, and filled with fear, echoed through the canyon. Wyatt froze. That wasn't a coyote or a cougar. It was human. He jumped on his horse and rode toward the sound, his instincts sharper than ever. He followed broken branches, hoof prints, and disturbed dust until he found her. A young Apache woman lay on the ground, her leg trapped under her fallen horse. The animal was dead, likely from a hard fall. Her dark hair was tangled, her face covered in dust, but her eyes were alive, strong and defiant. She looked up at Wyatt without fear, even though he was a white man. "Don't move," Wyatt said softly, dismounting. She didn't answer, but her eyes followed every move he made. Wyatt lifted the horse's body just enough to free her leg, then gently pulled her out. She winced in pain, but didn't cry. Her leg was bleeding and possibly broken. Wyatt knew she wouldn't survive the night alone. "I'm going to help you," he said. Still no words, just silence and pride. He wrapped her leg in cloth and lifted her onto his horse, cradling her gently. They rode back to his cabin under the moonlight. Inside, Wyatt laid her down on his bed and cleaned her wounds. He worked slowly, with respect, avoiding her eyes at first. But every time he looked up, she was watching him. There was no fear in her gaze, only caution and curiosity. The woman didn't speak much over the next few days. Wyatt didn't push her. He gave her food, fresh water, and space. He boiled herbs to reduce her fever and changed her bandages every morning. On the fourth day, she finally spoke. "Ayanna," she said, pointing to herself. Wyatt nodded. "Wyatt," she nodded back. Over time, small conversations began. Ayanna spoke little English, and Wyatt didn't know Apache, but they found ways to understand each other, through gestures, through looks, through kindness. She told him how her horse was frightened by a mountain lion, and she fell into the canyon. She had been hunting rabbits for her village when she got lost. She said little else, but she always watched Wyatt closely, as if studying him. Wyatt noticed how strong she was, even when in pain. She never complained. She tried to help around the cabin, even when she could barely stand. She would hum old Apache songs at night when she thought he wasn't listening. They were soft, sad songs, like the kind his mother used to sing in the winter. He found himself looking forward to her voice. He caught himself smiling again. Ayanna started walking with a cane made from a tree branch Wyatt carved for her. Slowly, she moved around the cabin. She watched him work, and he taught her little things: how to sharpen a knife, how to boil coffee, how to feed the hens. One day they sat by the fire in silence. She picked up a piece of charcoal and drew in the dirt, mountains, rivers, and what looked like people dancing. "You're home?" Wyatt asked. She nodded. Then she pointed toward the east. 3 days' walk, she said softly. Wyatt felt something strange in his chest. He didn't want her to go, but he knew she couldn't stay forever. That night she sang louder than usual. Wyatt sat on the porch, listening. He didn't go inside until long after the fire had died down. The next morning, Ayanna was gone. Her bed was empty, the cane was gone. Wyatt ran outside, calling her name. Nothing, just the sound of wind through the grass. But on the table inside the cabin, she had left something behind. A hand-carved feather made of wood, carefully painted. Beside it, a piece of deer hide with Apache symbols burned into it. Wyatt didn't know what the symbols meant, but he knew it wasn't goodbye. He sat down, holding the feather in his calloused hands. He didn't eat that day. He didn't work. He just sat in silence, the same silence that had comforted him for years, now feeling heavy. That evening, just as the sun dipped behind the cliffs, he heard horses outside. He grabbed his rifle and stepped out onto the porch. 6 Apache warriors sat on horseback, watching him closely. They wore feathers, beads, and war paint. Wyatt stood still, not pointing his gun, but not putting it down either. Then one of the riders stepped forward and raised a hand in peace. "You are Wyatt," the man said. "I am," Wyatt replied, steady. "You helped Ayanna. You saved her life." Wyatt gave a slow nod. "She was hurt. I couldn't leave her." The warrior looked at the others, then back at Wyatt. "She is the daughter of our chief. She told us everything." Wyatt's heart skipped. He hadn't known. She never said. The warrior continued. "You showed her honor, care, and respect. Our chief wants to meet you. The tribe wishes to thank you." Wyatt said nothing for a moment. He looked down at the carved feather in his hand, then back up at the warriors. "Will I be safe?" "You already are." And with those words, Wyatt Cole, former soldier, quiet rancher, and lonely soul, stepped down from his porch and followed them into the unknown. Wyatt rode with the Apache warriors through hills, forests, and rivers for nearly 2 days. They barely spoke, but he didn't feel fear anymore. He remembered Ayanna's calm eyes, her gentle voice, and the way she left that carved feather behind. Something inside him told him this was the right thing to do. When they finally arrived, Wyatt saw the village, hidden deep in the woods, surrounded by tall trees and mountains. Dozens of small lodges made of wood and animal hide stood in a circle. Smoke rose from fires. Children ran between the huts. Women ground corn, sang songs, and worked with beads. Warriors watched him with silent eyes. Ayanna stood near a fire, wrapped in a red blanket, her black hair tied in 2 braids. Her eyes widened when she saw Wyatt. She stepped forward slowly. There was no fear or surprise, only something gentle and warm. "You came," she said softly. Wyatt nodded. "You left your feather. I wasn't sure what it meant." She smiled. "It means thank you, and it means come." Before Wyatt could say more, an older man approached. He had silver in his hair and deep lines on his face, but his eyes were strong. He wore eagle feathers and a bear-tooth necklace. This was Chief Taza, Ayanna's father. "You are the man who saved my daughter," the chief said in slow, clear English.
"Yes, sir."
"You gave her safety. You gave her shelter. You gave her dignity. That means more than you know." Wyatt didn't know what to say. He simply bowed his head. Chief Taza continued, "We invite you to stay with us for a while, to share our food, our stories, our fire, if you are willing." Wyatt looked around. The eyes watching him didn't feel cold now. They felt curious, maybe even open. He nodded. "I'm willing." So Wyatt stayed. The days moved slowly at first. Everything was different. The food, the language, the way people worked together. He helped carry water, repair huts, and gather firewood. The children followed him, giggling and pointing at his boots. The women shared cooked corn and wild berries, and the warriors taught him how to move silently in the woods. Wyatt didn't try to become one of them. He just listened, learned, and offered help where he could. Ayanna often watched him from a distance. When she smiled, it made his chest feel full. They would sit together in the evenings. She taught him Apache words. He told her about his childhood, his mother, the war, the silence that followed. She listened without judgment. One night, after helping repair a broken fence, Wyatt returned to find a fire burning in the center of the village. People were gathered, faces painted, drums beating slowly. Chief Taza stood in the middle. "You have stayed with us. You have worked with us. You have shown kindness and strength," the chief said. "It is time to give you a name." The people murmured in agreement. The chief walked over to Wyatt and placed a hand on his shoulder. "You will be called Toshli, Strongheart, a man of few words but many actions." The tribe cheered softly. One of the warriors painted a red line across Wyatt's face. It felt like fire, but not the kind that burns. It was the kind that wakes up the soul. That night, Wyatt sat beside Ayanna by the fire. Strong heart, she said, almost teasing. Is that a good name? He asked. She looked at him for a long moment. It's the right name. The days that followed felt different. Wyatt no longer felt like a visitor. He was included in hunting trips, invited to tribal meetings, and asked for advice. He taught some of the young boys how to ride with more balance. He helped build a new storehouse for dried meat. But more than anything, he felt connected for the first time in years. One evening, as they walked near the river, Wyatt turned to Ayanna. "Why did you leave without saying goodbye?" She looked away for a moment, then met his eyes. "Because I didn't want you to feel forced to follow. I needed to know you'd come on your own." "I would have come sooner," he said quietly, "if I knew what I was leaving behind." Ayanna smiled gently. "Now you're here. That's all that matters." Weeks turned into months. Seasons changed. Wyatt stopped counting days. The quiet life he once held onto had been replaced with something deeper: belonging. Then one morning, Chief Taza called Wyatt to his hut. "There is a ceremony tonight," he said. "For our people, when two souls find each other, we join them before the fire. If you wish it, I will bless your path with my daughter." Wyatt was silent for a moment. "Does she wish it too?" "She does," the chief said. "She told me with her heart." That night, under a sky full of stars, the tribe gathered. The fire burned bright. Drums echoed into the trees. Wyatt wore a robe made of elk hide, and Ayanna wore a red dress embroidered with beads. The chief spoke old words in Apache, then in English. "These two hearts have found one rhythm. We bless them with fire, wind, and water. Let them walk side by side from this day." Wyatt took Ayanna's hand. It was warm and steady. "I used to think I was meant to live alone," he whispered. "But then you came. And I used to think I'd never trust a stranger," she said. "But then you stayed." They smiled. No more words were needed. From that day on, Wyatt Cole was not just a man of the desert. He was Toshli Strongheart, a brother, a husband, and a part of something greater. He never returned to his old cabin. The wind still whispered through the canyon, but now it carried a song of healing, of love, of a heart finally at home.